August WeHa Wednesday webinar speaker. Based on popular demand, it was asked that I talk about some new hot topic special processes. So, objectives are going to be, first we're going to talk a little bit about freeze drying. Kind of what is freeze drying? Oh, Brian, do we want to back up and record? We are recording.
We are recording. You are
Perfect.
good. Thank you.
Okay. We're talking about freeze drying. Dehydrating is kind of making its kind of reappearing on the scene. So I'm going to talk a little bit about dehydrating. Deanna similarly, and I don't believe she's on the call, asked me to talk some about silica packets and oxygen absorbers. What are they? What's the difference? Do they equal special process? And I know we're all tired of the cold brew coffee topic, but we did run into a situation where there were some special considerations that I also want to work through that as well with you all. All right. I love to talk about the department. I love my job, as most of you know. So at DATCAP, we have a mission, a vision, and we have core values. So our mission is that we partner with all the citizens of Wisconsin to grow the economy by promoting quality food, healthy plants and animals, and we also ensure sound use of land and water resources and a fair marketplace. Our vision is to deliver efficient and effective programs and service to Wisconsin agriculture, consumer, and businesses, and to provide market confidence and to enhance competitiveness and profitability. And this is my favorite. Our core values are actually the initials of DATCAP. We encourage diversity. Accountability is huge. Teamwork. I love my team. I actually work outside of my team quite often as well. Customer service is first and foremost. You are our customers as agents as well as industry. And professionalism. All right. I'm going to give everybody a second. There is some questions on a Microsoft form. If you would please scan the QR code, you can use your phone. Otherwise, I will try to get the link in the chat as well if you're on computers. Let's see here. So I can't do the chat. Does anybody need the link, or are they able to use the QR code, scan the QR code? And you can just unmute or raise your hand. I see some thumbs up. Okay. All right, so I am going to stop sharing this slide, and we are going to go out to the Microsoft form. I can find it. I have 500 tabs open, and I should know better, correct? Yes. All right, let's see here. Otherwise, is everybody having a good Wednesday? No, that's not it. I'll get it, Brian, I promise. Share. Well, I have this working. Okay, we're just going to share the screen. That just makes it easier. All right. So, first question, kind of across the board, we have 16 responses. Responses are still pouring in. Do you know the difference between freeze drying and dehydrating? 30% of you say yes. Yeah, we're pretty much across the board even. Some yeses, some no's, some not sure's. Okay. I love this lifetime polling. It's kind of fun. All right. Next question. Is cold brew coffee TCS? Does everybody know what cold brew coffee is? Because again, I will give a brief description of it. So 78% of you say yes. All right. Have you seen people use silica packets or oxygen absorbers in packaging at retail? This is kind of a new one that's been popping up as well. So 67% of you have said no. Excellent. So when you think of that, you probably kind of think of your beef jerky packages. And this is just kind of a fun, open-ended question. Have you seen any unusual special processes in the field? What was it? Some no's. Freeze drying and then oven baking TCS foods. We're going to talk about that. Reduce oxygen package, which the retailer then stopped using when needing a HACCP plan. Pretty common. Preserving duck confit for 30 plus days and fat. Driftless delights and not wanting to be licensed. Not ethical, not yet. Cold brew, dehydrated. Yeah. So there are some things I feel like industry is always pushing the envelope. There always seems to be 5 steps ahead of us. Okay, so back to the presentation. All right. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. All right, share and so freeze drying. What is freeze drying? Right. Brian, I am going to close out the presentation and open it back up again. That will make it easier. I'm usually much better at this, everyone. Skip through there. Okay, so what is freeze drying? Again, lots of questions on freeze drying. I know we covered it a little bit last year at the conference. I'm going to go into it a little bit more. So the primary purpose of freeze drying within the food industry is to extend the shelf life of the food while maintaining the quality. A freeze drying is known to result in the highest quality of foods of all drying techniques because structural integrity is maintained along with preservation of flavors. Because freeze drying is expensive, we know the machines are really expensive. It is used mainly with high value products. Examples of high value freeze dried products are your seasonal fruits and vegetables, maybe coffee, foods for military rations, foods used for astronauts or cosmonauts. Hiking is where it's really making its increase. So there are 4 stages in the freeze drying process. There's the pre-treatment, there's the freezing, the primary drying, and the secondary drying. So you can see here, these are just some examples. The packages on the left and the right are a freeze-dried diced chicken and a freeze-dried green pepper. The packaging is for display only. Typically, when products are freeze-dried, they're going to be in a sealed container, like a Mylar container or Mylar packaging like you see in the middle. This was a great little quick video I found online. It kind of really covers the how freeze drying works, and we're going to have to skip through the ad here in 3, 2, 1. Sorry, everyone. Why is this not letting me skip? Well, I guess we're going to watch an ad. So this video can also be found online at YouTube. This is where I found the video. If you're interested in the link, we can provide it in the chat after the presentation. But again, it's kind of a really quick process on how freeze drying works.
turns on and creates a powerful vacuum around the food. As the trays gradually warm, while the food is still frozen, a process called sublimation occurs, which removes water from the food. This is what allows the food to keep its original shape, flavor, and nutrition. The process takes between 20 to 36 hours. Smart sensors determine when the food is completely dry and alert you with a beep. The process is entirely automatic.
Okay, so you can see the food remains frozen during the entire process. It's just the trays that warm up. So, when is a HACCP plan and variance required when somebody is freeze drying? We get a lot of questions on candies. Skittles, Jolly Ranchers, Nerds seem to be the popular one, like the Nerds Gobs. Those are a non-TCS food. If someone wants to freeze dry those, they can do that at retail with a license under their retail license. Keep in mind, if they're packaging them, packaging requirements apply. They have to be properly labeled per standards or per requirements in the food code. There are some trademark issues as well. So you're not going to see freeze-dried Skittles or freeze-dried Jolly Ranchers. You're going to see them called something else. Raw plant food not considered a TCS food. So again, we get a lot of questions on berries, lemons, limes, peppers, onions. If it's not one of those TCS foods identified by definition, cut melons, watermelon, cut leafy greens, raw meats, they can also freeze dry those products without a variance and HACCP plan. Now, when does a variance and HACCP plan kick in? Any TCS food. Ice cream. I've seen people freeze dry ice cream sandwiches. Desserts, cheesecakes seem to be popular. Ready to eat foods. I've approved plans for diced chicken breasts, chicken strips, cheese chunks. I've approved a plan for somebody freeze drying raw eggs, which kind of almost makes a powder, and any cooked plant food. So if they're going to cook a plant food, that's going to be a variance and HACCP plan. Cooked plant food also is heat treated. There is no definition for heat treatment right now. So if they're applying heat to it, I would say err on the side of caution, variance and HACCP plan. Now, what about dehydration? So dehydration, again, we're lowering the water activity of the product, but it's done in a different way. So dehydration is a process of removing moisture from fruits and vegetables, resulting in their preservation and extended shelf life. So by reducing water content, dehydration inhibits the growth of microorganisms and enzymatic reactions while retaining flavor, nutritional value, texture. Dehydrated tropical fruits and vegetables offer convenience and concentrated flavors and increased market opportunities. So what temperature do you typically see foods being dehydrated at? This again is one of those, is this heat treatment, especially for plant foods. You're typically going to see dehydration happening anywhere from 120 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. You're not going to see it at above 140 degrees Fahrenheit because it's going to discolor and destroy nutrients. So again, in heat pump drying, the temperature is normally 104 to 113. So it's a little lower, but on average, that temperature is going to be somewhere around above the 100-degree mark. So again, when we're looking at that, we have some concerns with some certain pathogens. As I mentioned, we currently do not have a definition of heat treatment. So this could be making a non-TCS food, like in the picture you see an apple, into a TCS food. You're going to want to know the process, the equipment. Of course, we want to make sure all equipment is ANSI accredited. So it's either NSF, ETL, it meets those requirements under Chapter 4, or it has department approval. Also, how is it being packaged? A question arose if a fruit is dehydrated by the operator, placed in a hand-tightened jar with an oxygen absorber and held at room temperature for sale. Is this a special process? And I had a discussion with this further yesterday. It is a special process. So we don't know. I would want to know what the temperature is that they're dehydrating the fruit at. And the fruit might have a low enough pH where it would be even still not a concern because it has that low pH and they are lowering that water activity. Again, we err on the side of caution as food scientists, so we would say anything that scares us under 3-50211G. Now, if they're adding that oxygen absorber into a jar, like a mason jar, or into some packaging, that is most likely going to be a form of reduced oxygen packaging because that oxygen absorber, which I'm going to talk about, is removing oxygen in the package. I'm not sure. I thought it would be canning. I think we would have to evaluate on a case-by-case situation, but I think the bottom line is the operator is going to need to test that final product to determine if it would fall under the definition of canning. Most of the time, a dehydrated product is going to have a low enough water activity that it's not going to fall under canning. All right, as I mentioned, silica packets versus oxygen absorbers. There is a difference. So the bottom line is the silica gel in that packet is a drying agent. They put those in there to keep the moisture from damaging certain food products. Like I said, you might see them in things like beef jerky, new shoes, purses, jackets. They typically drop out of pockets when I go to try on a new jacket. It is typically non-toxic, but ingested, if it's ingested, it could cause a choking hazard. So for this reason, that's why you see them labeled as do not eat. Somebody eats one, call 911. Oxygen absorbers, these are typically oxygen scavengers. They're added to enclosed packaging. You will see these added to freeze-dried foods. They add these to the packaging, again, to keep that moisture level down, to maintain that very low water activity. It's going to decrease the level of oxygen in the package, so it doesn't matter how much it decreases. If they're using an oxygen absorber, they are most likely causing a reduced oxygen packaged environment. So something from the manufacturer, what the use is for both of these products, like the silica packets, you're going to want to make sure it's removing moisture only if they're doing this. If it's an oxygen absorber or scavenger, are they using it to remove oxygen in the package? Again, how they're packaging it, how they're storing it is really important when you're looking at these products. All right. Cold brew. I don't know about all of you, but I am tired of cold brew, but we keep pushing through. So cold brew coffee, also called cold water extraction or cold pressing, is the process of steeping coffee grounds in water at cool temperatures for extended periods. So coarse ground beans are soaked in water for about 12 to 24 hours. We would have been inundated with people trying to conduct their own challenge studies. So the National Coffee Association did do a study that we are allowing certain critical limits in the steeping process. So folks can steep for up to 18 hours at ambient temperatures not to exceed 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, this is coming from the National Coffee Association white paper. The process needs to be an immersion type process, such as a toddy system that you'll see here in the picture. It will then need to be held refrigerated at 41 or below and date marked for no more than 7 days. Anything beyond date marking of 7 days, or if they're kegging it or canning it, putting it into a modified or reduced oxygen environment, is going to require a variance and HACCP plan. Again, they're still only going to get 7 days unless they test that product and they have that low enough pH, which the reason people drink cold brew coffee is it has a slightly higher pH, so it's not as bitter and acidic. The bottom line is, this is where this kind of ties in, you're going to want to know how they're going to keep that product. If they want to can it and keep it at ambient temperature, This is going to be considered canning. And I ran into this with a small franchise chain in the southeast part of the state. He is working through a challenge study to keep his product for more than 7 days. And I'm like, okay, great, 30 days. You're going to have to do a challenge study because he tested the product and pH didn't test out. So he started working with the lab, and when I was looking at the storage times that they were, or the storage temperatures they were proposing, he was proposing upwards of 60 days at ambient temperature. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Canning. This is now canning. It's a low acid food that they're canning and storing at room temperature. It's not one of those exemptions like a fermented beverage. So he will now have to work with the process authority. So again, very important to know what they're making, their process, how they're doing it, how they're storing it, and how they're packaging it. All right, this is just a fun one. This is for fun because my friend Angie Wheeler sent this to me. Snake wine. They actually ran into this over in Minnesota. So snake wine is an alcoholic beverage produced by infusing whole snakes in rice wine or grain alcohol. This is an Asian thing. I guess uh, the snakes, the venom, have medicinal purposes. And they're not preserved for their meat, but to have their essence and our snake venom dissolved in the liquor. She had told me that they had they had heard a story of a woman who actually went to open the bottle, and I don't know how they get that snake in that bottle, but she went to open the bottle and the snake was still alive and bit her. And you can see it's right in front of the bartender's guide. They sent the picture, and Angie's like, they need to remove it. This is not allowed in the United States. Cobras are a protected species, so I always like to, just for fun. Okay, so questions. I did get a couple of questions that I'm going to kind of go through, and the first one, more of a kind of a licensing question, and would this fall under the cottage foods? So we have a business that makes freeze-dried goods, meats, turkey legs, candies, fruits, ice creams, scoops, ice cream sandwiches, pickle chips, grilled cheese, and they sell them at markets and events. They make these in a home kitchen outside of our county. Their process is they freeze dry the items and then bake them in the oven. Is this considered a freeze-dried product or a baked good? Secondly, this same person sells these items in a retail storefront they opened. This isn't the main purpose of the storefront, but they wanted to sell their goods there. Would this be allowed under their current process, or would they need a retail food or food processor license? They need a license. And all of these products, I don't know what the pickle chips would be if they're dehydrating just like the pickle chips that you put on a hamburger. That probably would be okay. Freeze drying without a variance and HACCP plan, but a license. I am really concerned about the turkey legs, the cooked turkey legs, and they're freeze drying them because the freeze drying process actually preserves pathogens. And so there have been outbreaks associated with beef jerky where humidity hasn't been applied to control for mainly E. coli, salmonella. So then what happens is you're preserving those pathogens, and then somebody's going to rehydrate that turkey leg and just eat it as is. Well, if you haven't destroyed those pathogens, you've now preserved them. So again, this this to me, this is not cottage foods. This is a retail license. This is a special process. I know I have a phone a friend on the line as well. I don't know if Charlie has more that he would like to add.
Yeah, I did. I reached out to our legal counsel this morning, and I think even in regards to this, but if you can send in the individual process, we can take a look at it, and I'll send it over to our folks at legal counsel because some of this gets a little interesting, and we're going to do it on a case-by-case basis. So if you can send in the process, the product, that would be great, and then we can start that conversation. You can just send it to the licensing email, and then we'll send it over to the legal counsel and see what's going on. And if they're baking it for, I think we're going to take it on a case by case and by product and see what's going on there. Dairy products right away, kind of a red flag. So if you could do that, that would be fantastic, and we can start that process.
Yep. Thanks, Charlie. And
Mhm.
maybe Charlie will be so kind to put that licensing email in the chat as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks. All right. Next question. What questions would you need to ask the operator to determine if it can be done under retail or needs a product assessment or a process authority manufactured food license? And I kind of really talked a lot about this. So questions you're going to want to ask: how is it being packaged? How is it being sold? Are they canning it? Is it one of those exemptions under canning that it doesn't meet the definition of canning? I think what it really boils down to is a lot of times it's going to be a test, whether it's done in-house and verified by a lab, or they're sending periodically products into the lab. It's going to be a testing of some sort, but you're going to ask those questions, look at the product, see how it's being packaged, seeing how it's being sold. I just came across a couple weeks ago a whole bunch of stuff that did not meet the definition under the pickle bill. It was being it was being sold by a small market, um, products made in a woman's home. And so we had to order all of those out. So again, even if they're doing jellies and jams, there's certain criteria that they need to do under the pickle bill. And if you have more pickle bill questions, ask Charlie.
Yep, I can help with
Okay.
that. And then jams, jellies, if they're going to be made at retail, need to be under the standard of identity. I'm happy to send that out. If it's not under the standard of identity, then that's when you need to work with your food processing authority. Happy to send out those links at any time too.
Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can see the big screen. Looks like we have some question. We have a question from Amber. When you say freeze dry without a variance or HACCP, can you mention again what foods this applies to? And can they sell these at farmers markets without a license under the cottage law? Freeze dry. Okay, so freeze drying something like a raspberry or a lime or onions doesn't require a variance or HACCP plan. However, that is still processing that would require a license. And this is why I invited Charlie this morning to make sure to confirm what I'm saying is right when it comes to licensing. These foods do not fall under the cottage law. Does freeze drying equipment need to be ANSI certified if they're doing this in a retail setting? Yes, Kaylee. All equipment needs to meet that the requirements under Chapter 4 that they're meet some sort of ANSI accreditation program. Typically, we see NSF. If they do not, you can have them submit that documentation to the equipment committee. You can just have it sent right to the DATCAP retail mailbox. So we have seen, typically the top one is the Harvest freeze drying machine. There have been some approvals for that one. I believe they're coming out with a commercial unit and that it will meet NSF, I think under NSF. To clarify, all freeze drying require a processing license regardless of TCS or not. Charlie, yes, right?
Yes, if it's freeze drying.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And that would be, I forget the name of the word now, but it's the sublimation that we're looking at, or that's the process that they're doing. We're not talking about some of the other specialized or different processes that we've done on a case by case basis, but freeze drying as a whole, in that kind of, I don't want to say classical definition, but that's what we would consider needing a license. And then whether that's wholesale or retail, we can work through that and discuss those depending on what the operator is looking to sell, or how they're looking to sell rather.
Yep. I do want to make mention as well that there is this great book online, and there's a link for it on SharePoint. It's the AFDO Special Processes Guidebook. So there's no specific section on freeze drying. However, I'm on the work group for the guide, and we are probably going to work on freeze drying. I also want to make mention, if somebody is proposing freeze drying that they have to cook beforehand, they're also going to have to address humidity, relative humidity, thinking of FSIS Appendix A. If you come across this, just either email myself or the retail mailbox, and we can help you walk through it. Let's see. If they oven bake after, and then, let's see here. If they oven bake after, and then they are saying they are now under the cottage food law because of this, I kind of feel like so oven baking to me, you're preserving the food, and now I don't know. This is something we're going to have to talk about. I don't think this would fall under the cottage food law, but Charlie, maybe we can discuss this, that if they're freeze drying something and then throwing it in an oven to reach 140 degrees.
I feel like this is a case by case one. We're probably going to want to take through the legal counsel that we have.
Yes.
We have somebody on staff for that because these do get a little interesting. And so we need to make sure that we're just doing it on that case by case basis
Yes.
for these.
And to answer Kaylee's question, are the current harvest rate machines that are approved listed on SharePoint? I believe they are. That's the only one I've seen. Wants to use, and it's not ANSI certified. Now, Kaylee, you can see the list. However, my understanding is even if there's a comparable one on the list, the equipment committee still wants to review each specific situation, kind of like what Charlie's talking about. So we still want you to submit that comparable client compliance application and the documentation that goes along with the unit. Did that answer the question, Kaylee? I'll send it one in. Yes. Again, you can just send it to the retail mailbox and we'll get it to the equipment committee. Any other questions? I kind of see this fizzling out eventually. I think we had a big uptick years ago in kombucha tea, and then years ago we had beef jerky. So maybe this will kind of fizzle out. When people realize what's involved with the getting a HACCP plan, because we make them send the product in for water activity, whether it's dehydrating or freeze drying, or testing a product if they're canning cold brew coffee. They're kind of like, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, feel free to and keep those questions coming. I'm going to ask Charlie one more time. Anything you want to add, Charlie?
No, this has been great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Let me know if you want any of the links. I'll send them out. No problems there, and kind of help out in that regard.
Okay. Well, that's all I have for you, and I'm shocked I'm only 5 minutes over, and even with my little technical difficulties, sorry everyone. I'm usually not this awkward when it comes to pulling up presentations, but thanks for the patience today. It was a lot of fun. I totally food geek out, so I love this. All right. Have a good Wednesday, all. And
Yeah, and thank you very much, Carrie and Charlie. And we'll stop it here. Thank you so much.